No.
I have one request, please, that the ones who are lying down sit up.
That's a good thing to do.
Because I'm not here to entertain you. You could take entertainment lying down, that would be fine. I want to light a flame in you. I want to light a fire in you. And that can only happen when you're upright.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Should schools be cool is the topic that Udo has given me. Now, the word cool has different meanings. When I was young and somebody said, George, can I get you a drink? I would say, I'm cool, which means I have everything I need. Yeah, I'm fine. Today, cool is good, is enjoyable, is something that we like. Should schools be something that we like? I would say yes. I have 4 children. Only one of them, the youngest daughter, after my wife and I have gathered a lot of experience, only one of them told me, Dad, I love this school, in just those words. And I was so happy. You know, one of my kids has been to a school, and only for 2 years, that she loved. And she told me so. And if you ask me, now the word should is also interesting, but let's say it should be like that in an ideal world, yeah? The schools we have are the best we have managed to produce so far. And I'm sure many of the things are not so cool. Are you still in the, how many years do you go to school after 10 years of age? 8 or 9?
German it's 8.
In Germany it's still 8.
Yeah, at the moment.
And in
It
England?
changed. 8.
Spain? In Spain, how many years?
6.
6 years. You had 16 when you finished. Is that right? 16, 17.
And Holland?
As in, yeah.
8.
As in elementary school,
So
it's
they're
8 years.
very different. And at the time when the German ministries of education decided to squeeze 9 years of learning matter into 8 years, of course the idea was, well, that's the occasion to leave some stuff away. That is not really necessary, because believe me, most of the things you learn at school you'll never need in your life. But nobody was willing to leave anything away, so in those 8 years you have the same package that used to take 9 years, which puts you under stress. The sufferers are the arts, the sports, music. There's not much time for such things.
But also then mental health.
Hmm?
Mental health also decreases if you do not do these things.
Mental health decreases, and I remember the Spiegel, you know the Spiegel, the paper.
Magazine.
It had a magazine. It had a photo of a girl who said, I can't cope with it anymore. Ich kann nicht mehr, on her t-shirt. And her face was so, like, I had tears in my eyes when I looked at it. How can you do that to a kid? Okay, should. Should means in an ideal world. In an ideal world, of course, school should be cool, but life should be cool. The world should be cool. We don't have an ideal world, so that's the first bit of reality training that you get. Yesterday, that party out there with the protest songs, that brought back to me a certain nostalgia, because when these songs were composed and sung, I was a student. I was 20 in 1968. I'm 17 now. So I'm the old guy, you are the young ones, and I can tell you how it was then. Imagine a post-World War society under shock, still under shock in the 60s. You didn't talk about any topics that were well, questionable or dangerous, or you didn't talk about most things, certainly not about sex. You didn't talk critically about politics, you didn't question the authorities, no, you were a good citizen. And the nice thing that went with it, the standard of living rose, yeah? And, but the old ways of thinking, or rather of not thinking, prevailed. And there we were students, young and ready to take on the world, frustrated by this stiffness. And what did we do? Well, the Beatles were coming every day on the radio, and so some of us grew longer hair, the boys. And the girls started wearing jeans. I mean, that was unheard of today, it's normal, yeah? But then a girl wearing jeans was the last thing anybody would expect to see in the street. Like, people would turn around and she's got jeans. Have you seen that guy? He's got long hair. And we started to talk with each other. We had time. That was, I'm talking about student time now. We had time. A lecture that started before 10 o'clock was not a lecture to be considered. I never went to, yes, once, to one particular professor I went. That was an exception. I started my university at 10 o'clock, and so did everybody else, except the law students and the medical students, and that was different. But I was in psychology and sociology, so that was easy. And we started talking with each other and deciding which things we didn't like. And then we started making statements. For instance, there was this bus and tram company in Heidelberg where I studied, and the prices rose. Yeah, they made the prices higher. And we knew that there were a lot of people who couldn't afford those prices, and many students didn't have much money. So we made a demonstration in the streets, bring the prices down. And they wouldn't. They didn't take us seriously. So what we did is we put a red sticker on every car whose driver was willing to take hitchhikers. And that was called the Rote Punkt Aktion. And if you saw a car coming with a red sticker on the front, you did that and he would stop and you could get in. A few weeks after that, the prices went down again for the public transport. What we did was, first of all, become aware of something that is amiss, that is not cool. Then we started talking about it. What do you think about that? What do you think about it? And we had discussions that went till 4 o'clock in the morning. I was the coffee cook because I was able to make some very good Turkish coffee. And we discussed and discussed and discussed and decided to do things. And I was never in the extreme left. But I could see that they were discussing even more and deciding even more. And soon enough, we had demonstrations and strikes. The students would create a crowd. And they would, it was called umfunktionieren, change the lectures. the professor who was talking was asked to please shut up. We're now going to change this into a discussion about the prices of public transport, or about why is this Nazi still a judge, or why can we not decide for ourselves which lectures are good for the psychological curriculum, and we don't have a say at the university. Some professors were actually carried out of the lecture room. And science was important to us. Science was supposed to be, we were supposed to try to be as objective as possible. So you had to make tests to make sure that what you said was really true, and the tests had to be replicated by others. Science was trying to be an exact science. Now in sociology and psychology that's difficult, but let me put it this way. If Coca-Cola had tried to put a vending machine outside the door of the main lecture hall of Heidelberg University, there would have been a demonstration in the street, like Coca-Cola is getting its feet into the university. Today the lecture hall is owned by Coca-Cola, or by Bayer, or by Roche, or by Mercedes. Today the sciences are not the sciences anymore. If you want a scientist to say that your medicine is harmless, you buy one, or two or three. And then the other side who says that's a dangerous stuff, they buy theirs. They get other scientists to say that this medicine is dangerous. So science is not what we thought, what we hoped, what we defended anymore. And I think that's a very dangerous development. I don't like it at all. Yeah. There was a little bit of money around, and even students could afford to buy a car. I mean, it cost maybe 150 marks. It had 250,000 kilometers. And it was a bit, well, the brakes may not have been what they were supposed to be, and the steering, well. But we drove cars, and with those cars, people started traveling. Before that, they traveled to Lignano, northern Italy, to lie on the beach. The parents did that, or to Austria. Not France. France, after the war, that was still enemy country, and Germans were not well received there, and I think in Holland and Belgium it was the same. But they traveled to Turkey, and Iraq, and Iran, and Afghanistan, and India, and Spain, and Morocco in these rickety old cars. And they met people, and they saw things. You remember yesterday, John Dean, who said, 3 things I can recommend to you. First, travel. Second, travel. Third, travel. I fully agree with him. Travel is education. Yeah? You meet people that you have never seen before. They're different skin color, they live in different circumstances, and you see people who live on obviously going to say something very important now. Who live on $1 or $2 a day. Very poor people. And you look into their faces and they're happy. I mean, you get to bend your head around that, yeah? We are trying to get much money in Middle Europe, and they have little, and they smile. I mean, they don't. When they get ill, the chances are they die, or we would go to the doctor and be cured. But you look at their faces and they're happy. And other foods. And the students brought back this funny stuff to smoke. You know, the black Afghan and red Lebanese and the 0-0 from Morocco, and nobody talks about that today. But at the time, I have a friend who said if a student in the late 60s or early 70s did not smoke dope, either he was fast asleep or he's lying. It was a natural thing, and nobody minded. I mean, among the students. And the music became different. The musicians were high, and they played, even if they couldn't play the guitar, they grabbed the guitar and they tried out a few things. There was no music school for most of them. And some were gifted and learned to play the guitar, learned to sing, and they produced protest songs or hits in the back rooms and played them in public and became popular, and some of them got famous. It was that feeling that we got out there yesterday. Now, when you listen to Bob Dylan from a record, that's nice, you can hear the song. But what these two did out there was they brought it to life. You have to sing this stuff. Yeah? We shall overcome. I mean, who we if you don't sing along? Yeah? So everybody was singing. And the students overdid certain things. I noticed that the left-wing students were just as narrow in their outlook on life as the establishment. I did a bit of thinking and went to the Sociological Institute. We had a seminar that went over 1.5 hours, and that consisted of tearing to shreds establishment behaviorists and theorists, sociological theorists, on the basis of Das Kapital from Karl Marx. Long live Das Kapital. And we'd finished with Talcott Parsons, who is a very renowned sociologist, in about 35 minutes. And then I raised my hand, I said, comrades, you always had to say comrades, Genossen. I have an idea how we can spend the rest of the time. They said, yeah, let's hear it. Well, a dialectical exercise for us. Sounds good. What is it? I said, now we have torn to shreds Talcott Parsons on the basis of Karl Marx Kapital. Let's turn the thing around and base the next 30 minutes on the life work of Talcott Parsons, and from that perspective look critically at Das Kapital. Well, I knew what would happen. And boo, and get out of here, but I needed to hear it because I ascertained that the left was just as narrow in their outlook on life as the establishment. So there were two groups of blind people kind of fighting each other, and from that moment I kept out of it, because my question was then, what makes the minds of people narrow? And that is what I've studied all my life. Yeah? I don't have an opinion what should or should not be politically. Well, certain things I do not like. Yeah, but you get this government, you get that government. Everybody gets a chance. It's a democracy. People vote. Okay. What I don't like is cheating. What I don't like is lying. What I don't like is lack of empathy. What I don't like is any cuts to the freedom of people. What I don't like is unnecessary destruction. But most governments don't do that. So for me it's all right if at one time one party is in the government, other times the other party is in the government. what I do is I look what disturbs me. What disturbs me? What do I hate to see? What gives me pain? And I ask you to do the same thing. In this school, yeah? It's a fine school, but there may be bits where you say, that shouldn't be like this. If I walk and see beggars in the streets, well, beggars, there are people who are poor, and if they beg, I give them something, especially when they play music. I tend to give them something. But then there are gangs of beggars, and I don't like that. Augsburg is a fantastic town, but I'm sure you will find one or two things that bother you. In order to know what bothers you, you have to know your values. You have to know, who am I? What do I stand for? Let's say you have found in this school this that you object to. Stands symbolically for whatever you find. The first thing you have to do is understand what this is about. Why somebody might have put it there. And then you have to look inside, why don't I like this? Which of my values does it contradict? So you have to know your values. Yeah, we're going to get to that. And when I understand myself and this thing, I can go to somebody else and say, what do you think about this? And you, and you, and you. And if I'm the only one who objects, well, forget it. You're not going to change it. But if you find many people who think that this is not optimal, this is not cool, this should be different, in our school this should be different. If you find a group of people, then get together and talk like we did in the 60s. Talk about it. How much does it bother us? Are we willing, kannst du das Fenster wieder aufmachen?
Okay, the ring is open.
Are we willing to invest ourselves in changing this? Investing oneself means, well, you have to swim against the stream. You have to swim against the mainstream. The mainstream says we need that. And you say, this is hurting people. And you're going to get a lot of opposition from the established people who have been used to this for maybe 30 years. And they're going to make you feel it. Some teachers may stop liking you. Some of your schoolmates may stop liking you. Do you think protest is easy? Protest is very hard bread to eat. Your parents may get a letter from the school saying your daughter has been oppositional. Would you please take care that she understands that the school only functions if we all play along? Well, you have to decide if it's worthwhile. Is it worthwhile to invest yourself to risk unpleasantness? Remember, people got killed because they said things that were true in our understanding. Think of Martin Luther King. But some other people didn't like. Most of the matters that you will decide you want to oppose will not be of that category, and you won't find people with guns killing you. But it will be unpleasant to swim against the stream. The thing is, if you think schools should be cool, it's up to you. Don't wait for the establishment to do something to make the school cooler. Now we have here Schule ist mehr, a plan to improve the school from the established authorities, probably pushed by people like Udo and others. So there is a plan, and it says, make love not war. Times they are a-changing. Oh, we had nice slogans like, save water, bath with a friend.
Shower with a friend.
Huh?
Shower.
We had bath.
Yeah, shower.
Shower was or one that I still subscribe to this day, power to the people. If people want power, do you want to assume the power that you have? Do you realize how much power you have? When the G8 started in Germany, squeezing 9 years into 8 years, I called around, I phoned the student speakers of 3 or 4 Munich gymnasiums. And I said, you realize what's going on? Oh yes, we realize what's going on. Well, what you're going to do about it? What do you mean, do about it? We have the best schools that you can imagine. What should we do about our school? And I tell you something, the worst enemy of freedom is the happy slave. The one who does not think critical. What is not cool in my school, in my university, in my town? What is not cool in the world? And if the plastic in the Pacific is bothering you, another slogan comes to mind. Think global, act local. The next time you order ice cafe or something, say, please without a straw. And don't take it to go, because that's rubbish that will fill the bins, if we're lucky. Act local, act here, do the small things. Now I realize that Germany is a special case. Here we separate the rubbish. We have organic and plastic and paper and Restmüll, which is all the rest. And we separate them and somehow imagine that they're going to be taken care of separately. I hear in Spain and in other countries, in most of the world, this is not so. So one could say, why should I bother with this straw if nobody else cares? Well, I'll tell you something. I bother with this straw. I cannot do much, but I can do that. I can avoid that this straw lands in the Pacific or wherever it pollutes the air. What is necessary to make a difference? I want you to make a difference. I want you to think, in what do I want to invest my life? Now, you may want to invest your life into medicine, into law, in law and order, into teaching, into biology. Do you want to invest yourself into making the world, the school, the town, your family, the world, a little bit better? Do you want to be part of the disease, or do you want to be part of the cure? And don't be megalomaniac. You will not be able to change the world all by yourself. But you have a voice, and you have friends. And if you encounter something like that, you can say, what do you think of that? I don't like it. And you will say, maybe, I don't like it either, but what can we do? And you don't like it, and you don't like it. Suddenly we have 20 people talking about this. Maybe we can do something. We'll write a petition. 100,000 or we'll talk to a guy who knows the guy who is responsible for that. And you generate ideas, you become creative. It's always love it, change it, or leave it. Life, if you love it, is fantastic. You just enjoy. You get into situations during your lifetime where you just love it. Now there's nothing to do there, just enjoy. Yeah? And if something occurs, or if you encounter something that you do not like, then the next step is change it. Many things you cannot change, they're too big for us. Yeah? Change the things that you can change. And if you have friends, talk to them about it. See if you can generate an idea that is bigger than yourself. I have heard of an American businessman, little businessman, nothing big. He heard in the radio or read in the papers that every 6 seconds a child dies of hunger on this planet. And that touched him deep in his heart. And it moved him so that spontaneously he said, I'm not going to rest until every child in this world has enough to eat. And then I imagine he must have looked in the mirror. You? You must be joking. Who are you to try to feed the world? You must be completely bonkers. You're nothing. And with your education, what do you want to do? You have little education to feed the world. You need big education. So humility came. And then he must have said, I don't care. Whatever I am and whatever I got, I'm going to put to the service of feeding the world. And he talked to his friends, and they picked up the idea. Together they founded the World Hunger Fund, and they have not succeeded in feeding every child. But at the time, instead of every 6 seconds, it was every 7 seconds. A child died of hunger. One man, not an important man, a man like you and me, or a woman. You can do things. But there are preconditions. And the preconditions are, first of all, you must know yourself. You must know yourself. You must know your values. What do I stand for? Now, values are international. We want enough to eat. We want a roof over our head. That goes for the migrants too, for anybody in this world. Yeah? Enough to eat, a roof over our head. Learning opportunities. I made a list. Let me see. Working possibilities. A possibility to earn enough money that you can live in a good way. Not rich, but enough. And then there are things like equality. Yesterday, was it yesterday? No, day before yesterday, you wrote down the things that bother you, and there was inequality. We're working on it. We haven't gone very far yet, but we're working on it. We're working on the equality between men and women. There's a long way to go. I was standing in the queue at the cashier's desk in a garden center. And in front of me was a woman. She paid 450 euros for, I think, chairs and a table for her garden. 450 euros. And the cashier said to her, "Are you allowed to spend so much money when your husband isn't here?" That was, I think, about 6 years ago in Bavaria. We have a long way to go, but we're working on it. And if each of you works on it, the girls not being put down, not allowing themselves to be put down, and the boys by learning to respect the girls on an equal eye level, we're changing something in a small way. Now, there are cliches. There are cliches, which means preconceived ideas. Girls should be nice and pretty, and boys should be big and strong. Before we don't forget that sort of cliche, we're not going to establish a kind of equality. There are boys who are not big and strong, and there are girls who are very big and strong, and there are boys who are nice and pretty. Hey, this is a cliche, this is just an idea. And you watch yourself, how you look at women. Equality. And also fairness. Fairness. I saw on a TED talk on YouTube an experiment they have done with monkeys. They had a simple task to perform, like hand out a stone, and they would be given a reward in the form of a piece of cucumber. And there were 2 monkeys next to each other, and they were given cucumber for handing over the stone. And then they did the same task again, and that monkey got a cucumber, and that monkey got a grape. Now, a grape tastes much better than cucumber. And when that monkey saw that this one got grapes, he tried it once more. He handed out the stone. He got a cucumber, and the other got a grape. And then he started shaking the cage and throwing the cucumber away. Even monkeys have a sense of fairness. And with one experimenter, the other monkey refused the grape. Imagine, animals, yeah? So fairness is something that is deeply ingrained in our nature. Stand up for fairness. That's worthwhile, yeah? And then empathy. Empathy. I mean, sometimes I read something in the papers or I see something on TV and tears come into my eyes because it's so horrible to watch. This Myanmar, the Rohingya in Myanmar. Is that necessary? Do we have to do that to each other? Okay, that's the big stuff that makes the papers. What's in your neighborhood? That's exactly the same. On a very small scale. Or in your classroom. Do you also find that people are treated unfair? Or that people are treated without much empathy? For instance, there are school children who have at home nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble. The father may be an alcoholic and the mother may be doing I don't know what. He has the key to the apartment, and when he goes home there's nobody there. And when he comes to school, he's maybe not going to be very good at math or something. He's not going to look very happy. And if you then add to his troubles by telling him that he's a nuisance or that he should be different than he is, you're not helping him. Ask him, what's troubling you? Not get out of my way. So the little things are important. Empathy. How do you learn empathy? By understanding yourself. There's a Chinese wise man who said you can explore the entire world without going out of your room. Which means you learn to understand everybody else in the world if you understand yourself. So get to know yourself. I'll write that down. Know yourself. And the second is learn to like yourself. Now this is very important. This is something that should happen in your lives now. If you don't like yourself, who should? You must learn to be your own best friend. And the best friend is not uncritical. Hooray, hooray, what a great guy. A good friend will tell you when you blundered, when you said or did something that was not cool. He will say, I didn't like what you said over there. And he says it because he likes you. He wouldn't bother if he didn't like you. So, to like oneself means not uncritical, but always with a benevolent eye. If you are not your own best friend, who the hell should be? And the best friend is, as I said, not uncritical. He learns, or she, the best friend. Now, knowing oneself is a process that takes your whole life. At the age of 30, you will think, Jesus, was I naive at the age of 20? Yeah? And at 40, you will think the same about the time when you were 30 years old. You'll get to know yourself deeper, but all the same, go into this process and get to know what you have now, what you are now, and then learn to like it. Now, liking oneself does not mean I like this part of me. Yeah, this is what I show you. This, and I'm still busy working on that one to make it presentable. It's not like that. That doesn't work. You have to buy the whole package. I have to buy the whole package that's called George. Light and shadow, ups and downs. The whole thing. You have to subscribe to being George or Hans or Antonio or whoever you are. And liking that person. Now for some kids it's difficult. Because parents, teachers may say, that's not good enough, you can do better. Look at her. If she can do it, you can do it. Which, in the short version, means you're no good. Or parents who tell you from the start that they wanted a boy and not you. How can you learn to like yourself in that sort of environment? Very difficult. Don't give a shit. Learn to like yourself. There's nothing wrong with you, with none of you. You can look in the mirror. You're never going to get out of this face of this body in this lifetime. Get used to it and get to like it. Now, why this is so important is that gives you strength. If you know yourself and you like yourself, you can stand stronger. And you can do things that you cannot do if you don't like yourself. If you don't like yourself and you get some opposition, the opposition's going to blow you away. If you like yourself and you know all your shadows and your weak points, and you get some opposition, you will say, yes, I know. All the same, I still feel that we should change that. You remain standing because you like yourself. That gives you power. And then you should know things like love it, change it, leave it. I'm gonna write this down. Either you love it. If you are in a situation in life that you love, wonderful, just enjoy. Something happens that you don't like anymore. The next step is then you fall out of the love it into change it. Change it. Change it, of course, with the idea of coming back to the love it. And in some instances you can do that very easily. You can change something that you do not like, if it's within your reach. If it's outside your reach, if it's in the reach of Udo, I can go to Udo and say, we're having trouble with this. Could you please, I mean, it's very important, not only to me, because I gathered friends and we talked about it, all these people don't like that too much. You will do us a great favor if you would stop that. So we can change the facts. Or we can change our perspective on the facts. Let's say you get a teacher that you don't like. He gives you a hard time. And you can't change the teacher. No way. We can't change the fact that this guy is our teacher. What can we change? The perspective. Okay. Nobody in this world is testing my patience as much as this guy. I'm gonna take him as my special trainer in patience. And suddenly this guy whom I hated before becomes a valuable teacher. Not because he teaches geography or Latin or I don't know what, but because he gets me so angry, and then inside I go like this and I say, I'm not going to give you that power. Breathe deep, and if that lasts a year or two, at the end of those 2 years, you will be in control of a part of yourself that you have not been in control of before. I mean, you may have learned some geography or Latin from this guy, but what the most precious thing you learn is patience. The first time I encountered a change of perspective was my grandmother's sister, my Aunt Marie. Her hip was not broken, but very, very bad, and she walked with a stick like this. And I was 12 years old, and I said, Aunt Marie, does your hip hurt very much? And she said, yes, but that is for my sins. Now, she was very Catholic, and she suffered the pains without ever complaining, in the hope that she would get into heaven faster or not spend so much time in purgatory. She had constructed a way of giving those pains a meaning and a sense. It took me many, many years to understand what she had done, but it was fantastic. Today you go to the doctor and he will repair your hip, the old hip goes out, you get a new hip in, and 2 weeks of rehabilitation, ambulant, and you're fixed. At that time a hip was a hip, and if it was broken, it was broken.
No hip hop there.
No hip hop. So you can change the perspective. And sometimes that too doesn't help. Or you have trained your patience with this teacher, or trained whatever you needed to train with a person that made life difficult for you, and you still don't know. Then you have a third option, and only one third option. And that is, leave it. Which means, get out of here. Get out of here, of course, with the idea of finding a new love it. That's what my youngest daughter did at school. She was in, first she was in Mühldorf at a school here in Bavaria, and the teachers weren't good enough for her. She said, I don't like these teachers. The chances that in the next year I get these teachers in French and mathematics is too big. Are there any other schools around here, she said. I said, well, go on the internet and check it out. She found a school in Altötting that was a Catholic school, and the teachers were not state employees. They were employees of the school, and they had to perform to be kept on the staff. And indeed, the teachers were much better. She changed the school and went there, but it was a very Catholic school. And the teachers would wait until the very last student would have understood before they moved on with the topic. And if you knew Sandra, you would know that doesn't work for her. She's always fast, 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 and she can't wait to repeat and repeat and repeat the same lesson again until everybody has understood it. So she came to me and she said, look, I want to go into cinema. That's an English-speaking profession. I want to go to England. And there was no way of stopping her for us, my wife and I. So Sandra and I went to England to check out schools. She decided she wanted to leave it. And we went and inspected 6 different schools to find out which one she would like. And there was the golden cage for the rich people's children that they wouldn't look after, and then there was the oldest school in England where the headmaster said, don't bring your daughter here, she would be unhappy. We're not good enough for her, she was very bright. And finally Sandra picked a school, the one where she afterwards said, I love this school, Dad. I love it. So getting out is another very alive thing to do. This is alive. Change it, change it, is the ultimate call for your creativity. I'll tell you a story. School was over. I'd been in a boarding school. Lights off at 10 o'clock. I love to read. Yeah, lights off at 10 o'clock. And then I was at university, and I could read as much and as long as I wanted. I read until midnight. I had a room with Mrs. Bopper. And I read until midnight, and then I heard steps outside my door, and cluck, the light went out. I said, okay, that's strange. Next morning I asked Mrs. Popper, and Mrs. Popper, who was a very tough woman, said, it's light out at midnight. That's the same thing I've had 8 years now. And I wouldn't take it. So change it was what I needed to do, but how? You couldn't discuss with Mrs. Popple. She was just as stiff as everybody at that time, 1966. You couldn't discuss. She reigned. So one morning, I did a bit of thinking about what I could do. One morning, I took out the plug from my bedside table lamp, and I placed a needle on both poles, and I put it back in again. Something went, and I left the apartment. I came home at 10:30 in the evening or night, Everything was dark. Frau Boppel was very miserable. Herr Pennington, do you understand anything about electricity? We had 2 electricians here, they couldn't find anything, and candles everywhere. I said, yes, at home I used to do that, because I learned how to handle electricity, but allow me to wash my hands, I'm coming from Thai. I washed my hands and I pulled the thing out, and then I went to the, what do you call, Sicherungskasten?
Fuse box.
Huh? Fuse box, yeah. And I screwed around here, and I changed something here, and I did something here, and then I screwed in the main fuse, and there was light. And I said, Mrs. Bopper, you know how much a new fuse box cost? It was about that size. If I were you, I would be happy that this one works, and I wouldn't touch it. From then on, I could read until the early morning. Now, this is just to give you an idea. Change it means being creative. Leave it is dangerous. Now, some of you are going to be teachers, and what in Germany is called Beamtet. And the teachers have trouble leaving because they lose everything that they built up. Also a school, my daughter is an exception, she left, but it's difficult to leave a school. Leaving is always a sacrifice. But if you're not willing to pay a price, you're not getting anything. You have to pay a price. It's no use running away somewhere. You have to look for and you love it. What is cool? If I can't make this place cool, where is a cool place? If you are in a work situation and you don't like the way things are in your workplace, you can hang on, of course, because this is risky. Who knows? If you're going to succeed, it might be worse where you're going. And there are losses. Losses. And here there is a fear, which leads to something very important that I want you to remember, which leads to some people remaining somewhere in between. And I used to call that the swamp until one of the people who were listening to me said, I am here, and you know what I call it? The twilight zone. The twilight zone. That's the inner emigration, that's the shutting off of aliveness. You recognize people who are in the twilight zone because their eyes don't sparkle anymore. And you will hear things from them like, you have to take things as they come. You can't have everything. It sounds like wisdom, but it's resignation. And on the gravestones of the people who landed in the twilight zone, you could write truthfully, died at 52, buried at 78. Because what was in between is not life. Life happens here, you love it, or if you find it's not cool, change it. Do what you can to change it, or to learn from it. And if that is not possible, get the hell out of here. And find a place that is nurturing to you, that will help you enjoy life. Because what is this whole thing about? I have done a lot of thinking about what success is. What is success? Is success getting money, getting fame? And there are many young people who believe that is success. If you're rich and you're famous. Well, it's not. Success is when at the end of your life, let's say you're lying on your last bed and you know you're not going to get up anymore. You don't have any pains and you're clear in your head, but you know this is it. And you look back on your life and there is a little smile on your lips. That is success. That's the only thing that counts, and if that smile is missing at the end of your life, you've done something wrong. And if today there is something so uncool that you can't smile about it, change it or leave it. Well, change it or learn from it. Change your perspective on it. Try to learn. And if you can't, if that doesn't work, leave it. Go elsewhere. Or help to make this school, this family, this town, this neighborhood cooler, a better place. And that's up to you. Don't think you have no voice. I said, if you don't like something, talk to others. You all don't like it? Well, let's discuss what we can do. And get some press coverage. And help to make this world a better place. I thank you for this occasion to speak to you. And I hope I have kindled a little flame in you. There's this book by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He tells, The Citadel, he tells about a shoemaker. He makes babouches, which are the oriental kind of slippers. And this guy opens his shop and all day long he sits and works on the babouche. And Antoine de Saint-Exupéry says he gives his life for his golden babouche. You should think about that. What do you want to give your life for? What do you want to invest your life in? Because that's what it's about. Can be medicine, can be a redeemed social condition, can be better food, can be less plastic straws, whatever it is, be part of the cure and not part of the disease. Learn to say no is very important. The most important thing, perhaps, at the end. Thank you very much.